Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, September 15th. Skipped yesterday. Gamed with my buddies. Was quite fun. Think the game went pretty well. But, skipped vlogging. Today, I got off work just a little bit early, and that is wonderful because that means I have time to make it to the movies. I've been wanting to see New Mutants since it released, and I got the time to do that today. Now, I don't like horror movies, so there's a good chance I won't like this movie. But I want to go see it because I do like Fox's X-Men movies. And this is tied to that property, and you know, the last one that was actually produced under Fox, although obviously with the hell that the movie has gone through to actually get released, it's being released by Disney now. And interestingly enough, they decided to release it as the movie to test. Are people going back to the theaters again? Can we start releasing our movies yet? So it was their first one with that, so clearly a bit of a throwaway on their part of, you know, if it fails, well, that's Fox's fault. But I've been following it since, you know, with all the different release dates and release years that it's had. So, you know, interested that it is finally actually coming out. And yeah, definitely wanted to take the chance, go to the theater, check it out. So, you know, of course, incoming spoilers if you haven't already seen New Mutants and care about that. But I'm gonna head into the theater and check it out. And I'll say I was impressed. I'd give that 4 out of 5. And I did not expect to like that movie that much. Most of the time when I'm going to a movie, I'm usually aiming for that level of interest. But because this one has the ties to Fox's X-Men series and was like the last of their movies, you know, until whatever Disney does with it, I wanted to go see it despite the fact that I was like, it's horror-based and I don't like horror movies. So I went to see it anyways. I was very impressed. Now, I will say, that being said, and it definitely has horror elements. If you just if you can't handle any horror elements in a movie, don't see it. But at the same point, if you're looking for a good horror movie, you'd probably be disappointed. It definitely has horror elements, but it's not. It doesn't keep you on the edge the whole time and not let you take a breath, which was definitely better and appreciated by me. And as I'm going further, I am definitely getting into total spoilers as I talk about this. So if you're interested, then you know, step away. I'm probably not doing anything else of interest today, so thank you for watching. But for those interested in discussing it, and feel free also to discuss in comments below if you've seen it. Wow. First off, just from it being it's a X-Men movie. It's, you know, in association with Marvel. It's a top dollar movie that basically features 6 actors and 1 set. There's a few other small localized, you know, small set pieces throughout the movie, but basically 1 environment. And even if you count the actors, some of which are only on screen for 10 to 30 seconds, that takes you from 6 up to, I think, 10 actors. And then there's a handful of faceless, you know, extras, basically. Extras, stuntmen, things like that fill the background or things like that. But I mean, like there are so few characters. It is definitely a small group of people, localized area, and their stories and their histories. And it was great storytelling. And oh man, did they pick some effed up stuff to cover. 'Cause yeah, basically it's 5 mutants in a mental facility with 1 doctor working for Essex Corporation, which I feel like the last several of the X-Men movies Fox was doing was dropping that. They've been doing that for a bit. Like, they were building up towards something that was going to be cool, and I'm kind of sad that we're never going to get that. But so, you know, yet again, a tie of DNA collection by the Essex Corporation. Ooh, so we've had that before. But it's this doctor trying to help and maintain. And the doctor, of course, is a mutant as well, whose power is force fields. It's just how she's controlling the facility, how she's keeping them all there. But it's 5 mutants who have backstories that's just trauma. I mean, you get our main character, Danny, who you see her basically, but she, you know, her power and, you know, and much of the plot is based on the fact that she and they do not know what her power is for much of the film. But it's the ability to manifest dreams, nightmares, really, both her own and those around her, and basically manifest those to reality. You know, through that, originally, she has a nightmare and destroys her entire reservation, kills her father, and doesn't really understand that she's done it, nor does really anyone else. Like, and by the end, she's figured out that she'd done that. And I mean, and she is therefore the psychic mutant. And this is the best psychic mutant learning to control their psychic powers thing that we've had. And she doesn't even have the ability then to use it proactively. She just figures out how to keep it from destroying her life and the life of those she cares about. But still, like, with all the with the couple attempts for Phoenix, like, they nailed it in this one. This was a good one. But, you know, so she have her story, and of course that trauma. Then we meet, you know, is it Rain? Who turns into a wolf. A beast. And she has deep Catholic roots. And so when she discovers she has this power, it traumatizes her. And the person that she trusts, that she cares about, that she goes to try and get help, is the priest, who literally brands her as a witch and tries to kill her as a monster, and she ends up in defending himself, killing him. So she still has deep Catholic convictions. It's still deeply, you know, part of who she is, and yet she has that on her conscience, trying to just push forward. Oh my god. And of course there's a romance story between her and Danny, and they're all, you know, teen-ish, whether, you know, playing the roles of, you know, teenage or just over kind of kids, because they're, you know, new mutants. You know, sometime during puberty phase is when that comes along, and so there's definitely that sort of romantic tension, which is fun to play with, and also helps with breaking up the horror elements. So I liked that. Then you get, is it Ilya as the other girl, who starts off like she is not nice, kind of a bully, kind of a rebel, sort of a bad individual, until you realize that of all of them, she's the one that's been the greatest hero thus far. As her, the point where her trauma is not from, it doesn't seem, her powers. Her powers didn't cause her trauma. Her powers were what finally saved her from her trauma. Because she was a victim of sex trafficking. And when her powers finally manifested, I think it was 18 of what I guess in her mind at least were the smiling men that she killed. So I'd say she's the greatest hero of them all going into it, but man, is that an unending source of trauma that she is living with. Holy crap. Like, oh, and Ilya's power is, she has a magic dragon, who's a puppet, otherwise a sword and magic teleport. She's magic. But yeah, like, laser sword, magic dragon, teleportation, she's cool. Then you get Roberto, whose power is to catch on fire. And so he cooked his girlfriend and finding it out. So that's deep trauma. And I'm trying to remember his name. I want to say maybe Sam. But the fifth of the patients in this facility had the power to basically shoot off like a rocket. Like build up energy and boom, 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 boom. I guess mostly invulnerable. I think he had like a broken arm, so not completely invulnerable, but like he'd slam into things at a level that, so he wasn't really getting hurt, but it would cause a lot of destruction. So he'd been working with his father in a mine, doing mining work, and got stressed out, claustrophobic, something shot off, collapsed the tunnel, killed his father, many of the people his father worked with. It's kind of branded a criminal, so again, more trauma. Just huge levels of deep trauma, which they've in some of the other X-Men movies, like they've hinted at the idea of, you know, oh, the traumatic situations that these mutants start with, but they took it up a notch for this one. I mean, largely because the trauma that they had in their past is the nightmares that they're living through in their present. It is the haunting. So, and basically the story starts as Danny comes to the facility because she's the one that brings the haunted nature to the facility. Because really beyond her control, it is through her that the nightmares are being made manifest, and therefore, all of a sudden, especially as she's undergoing treatments, which is really just the doctor trying to figure out what's going on and report it up to, you know, Mr. Sinister. They're so as they're drugging her and she has even less control, things get bad. And it's played really well as far as how I feel, as far as how it's sort of progresses and you figure out what's going on. Of course, you have that romance story that plays along throughout, and that's definitely, it gives you a sense of hope to hold on to as you go through it. It's because otherwise it's a lot of dealing with people's trauma. But yeah, it's people. I mean, which is because it is such a personal for every character. The situations they're going through are so personal. It allows such a small cast to work and still feel like such a deep movie. There's a point where you figure out, like, where, you know, it's clear these patients here think, as far as their assumption is that the person above this facility is Charles Xavier, and that if they can manage to control their powers, if they can manage to be successful and do this, that they're going to get to go possibly be or help in some way with the X-Men. So the characters have such lofty aspirations, which whether or not they truly want to do that or really just want to be able to go back and try and live a normal life as best they can, that's their goals, not knowing that this facility is trying to turn them into killers and worse. But it's the point where Danny sort of figures that out by some of the glimpses she has into the doctor's head and thoughts, that they start figuring out the problems. And that's the same point where Essex Corporation decides Danny doesn't need to stay around. So it's when the doctor, ties her down, starts putting laughing gas to knock her out, and basically is just talking to her about how she's gonna have to put her down. Just blatantly lets her know. But of course, as this is happening, nightmares are coming true around the facility because she's in a panic. And so her power is overacting. So Rain breaks her out, attacks the doctor. They manage to get the group of mutant kids together, and eventually, epic climax of the bear, her own nightmare, Danny's own nightmare, basically attacking the facility, killing the doctor, which technically sets them free, but then they have to deal with this whole, basically Danny is unconscious, trying to deal with her past, trying to get a hold of her powers, able to hear the people around her as they're working through it. So they're both having to keep her alive from her own nightmare, get to safety, not die themselves, while Danny is in her own head working out her problems. Like I said, epic visualization of the psychic mutant dealing with and learning to control their powers. As far as putting that into a visual medium, they did great. I was very impressed. I would like to see where those characters go from here on out. I don't think I'm going to get to, because that was the last of the Fox-produced movies, but with as long as Disney waited to release it, it is technically possible that they're planning to tie those characters into the Marvel's introduction of the X-Men, and well, I would be happy if they did. Because I very much enjoyed that. As far as the movie-going experience, it's no fun to sit and wear a mask the whole time. But, and their rule of, unless you're eating or drinking, feels like a way of saying, unless you pay us extra money, in which case you can have some time without it. I'm like, but still, willing to do it, and I'm glad I went and saw the movie. So, I was quite impressed. I'm gonna go home, probably edit, scrounge up something for dinner, and call it a day. I got plenty of time ahead of me, but nothing really exciting. Thank you for joining me, and joining me as my journey continues. Bye.